All right, welcome back to another episode of the Speak Truth Sports podcast. I am Bert, and I'm joined by.
Trey, as always.
And this week we got a lot of NBA and NFL news to report. Uh, if you are into listening to weekly sports news and getting the roundup of the week and just discussing it, if you're into that type of content, you're at the right place. Please like, subscribe, share, turn on the bell, do all that good stuff on if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on any type of podcasting app, please feel free to like us and just share us in general and leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you can. That would just really help us grow and it would help us deliver a better product to you guys in general. But before we get into it, Trey, you did want to bring something up, didn't you?
Yeah, on last week's podcast, when I was talking about Dak Prescott, I think I accidentally said his record as a Cowboy was 42-7. That is definitely incorrect. He's 42-27 as a starter for the Dallas Cowboys. I just want to get that out there. I don't want anyone to think that, this man is dropping straight dimes and winning so much. He was a good quarterback, but he wasn't great like that. So I just want to please clarify that.
All right, and with that, let's just jump right into it. We're going to kick it off with the NFL. We just had a big trade, like as of today, as of this morning, as of when we're recording this. So Carsen Wentz is now an Indianapolis Colt. I believe he was traded for a third-round pick and a conditional second-round pick that if Wentz plays 70% of the snaps at quarterback and he makes the playoffs, it turns into a first-round pick. Or if he just plays 75% of the snaps in general, it will turn into a first-round pick. What do you think about this trade, man?
I mean, this was a big win for Carson Wentz. It was a big win for the Colts. The Colts, how I always thought of it, they were always a quarterback away from being a contender. That defense is elite. So, on the offensive side, they also had pieces such as Michael Pittman Jr., T.Y. Hilton, if they do end up re-signing him, of course. Jack Doyle, Jonathan Taylor, Naeem Hines. Like, the offense was much better than the Eagles, so Wentz going to the Colts is a good thing for him. And just being back with Frank Reich, I think that's also a big thing for him because when he had his MVP-like season, his quarterback coach was Frank Reich. During that season, he had, I think he broke the franchise record for the Eagles with 33 passing touchdowns. He didn't even finish the season because he had a knee injury as well. He had his highest QBR, I think it was 78.5, which was the highest in his career at the time. And also another interesting thing that I didn't notice until today, I was looking into this. The Colts wide receiver coach, Mike Groh, he was Wentz's offensive coordinator when Frank Reich left. So he also has ties with Wentz. So this is like a big win for Wentz, I think. I think he's honestly the biggest winner of the whole thing of it all because, he's finally getting a chance to compete again.
I mean, we've been talking about this ever since our second podcast ever, and a lot of people were saying he had an untradeable contract, and I mean, this is just proving more and more that there's no contract that is untradeable, straight up. Carson Wentz, I think this is a great move for him. If there's any team that he's going to revitalize his career on, it's going to be the Colts. The Colts are just the perfect situation for Carson Wentz right now. Like you said, he has all those connections on the Colts already, and they just have great wide receivers. Or they have very good wide receivers, and the running back game is it's no joke. And their offensive line is like top 5 in the league in my opinion. So he's going into a very good situation. The Eagles also got a pretty good deal out of him, but they did definitely overhype his trade value. They said they wanted like a Matthew Stafford type deal. Like, man, like after the season Wentz just put up, like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that type of deal. And they settled for a conditional second and a third. So, yeah, I just think this is a fantastic move for the Colts. And I know some people aren't liking this move for the Colts. A lot of people are really, really down on Carson Wentz, but let's be real. He only had one down year so far, and it was just this past year. Like, it could just have been a down year. He could bounce back. We don't know, but I'd bet on him to bounce back, in my opinion.
Yeah, my thing with the Eagles is trading his contract did hurt them financially. I think it was a 33 million hit to their dead cap, and which is the biggest in NFL history by 10 million. I saw. I mean, I guess it's good for them that they are moving on from Wentz. With this trade, I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of happy it went down the way it did. I'm glad he didn't get traded for a first rounder. I feel like it kind of helped reset the market and kind of make people realize like, oh, a lot of these quarterbacks shouldn't be going for first rounders, or a lot of like certain players shouldn't go for first rounders, such as Wentz after this past season. So I'm kind of glad that they did negotiate that contingency within the conditional second rounder, because Wentz is injury prone. That is something we have to keep in mind. He did deal with a lot of injuries starting his career. So I feel like the Colts got a fair deal. I feel like the Eagles got a quite fair deal. But if you're an Eagles fan, this is kind of worrisome future-wise. Reports already are saying that the Eagles are looking to bring in competition for Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. And with Howie Roseman at the helm, you just never know what's up the sleeve. I also gave initial mock drafts, and a lot of them initially had the Eagles taking a receiver, but now with the trade and just in the past few days, I've been seeing a lot of reports saying that the Eagles could potentially jump for a quarterback in this draft, and that is kind of worrisome. I think they should focus more on building up Hurts more so than breaking him down. You need to build around him, put talent around him, and drafting a receiver with the 6th pick would be the best move, in my opinion, for them to really help out Hurts. If they want to bring in competition, I think sign like a trade for Marcus Mariota or sign a quarterback from free agency like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I would not, if I was the Eagles, I would not draft another quarterback, especially with the 6th pick.
Yeah, that's just so I laughed when I read that report because I just felt bad for the Eagles fans. If they draft another quarterback, unless they really, really believe in him, it's just going to be another Carsen Wentz, Nick Foles type situation where I think, Roseman's kind of living off that right now. He kind of thinks that if I get a good backup, just in case my quarterback goes down, we can still make a run. He's kind of on that Nick Foles wave, but drafting a quarterback 6 overall is not a way to get a good backup. You draft a quarterback that high if you're going to use him for the future. Otherwise, it's a waste of a pick. Just in general, I'm a believer in Jalen Hurts. I think he can be a very solid quarterback in the NFL. I would be surprised if they did take a quarterback, like they actually took one. I'm not surprised that they're considering it, just because the Eagles have just not used logic whenever they've operated these past few years. But I also think that this kind of shores up the quarterback market a little bit. A lot of teams that are looking for quarterbacks, it's definitely winding them down now. Now, we have 2 great quarterbacks. The 2 of the biggest quarterbacks are off the table completely for teams who need to step up and get a quarterback. And the Broncos and 49ers, there's been reports that, they are sneakily looking for a quarterback as well. So add in those 2 teams that are coming into the mix, and with all the teams that already need a new quarterback, there's not much left. I mean, there's Alex Smith potentially, Dak Prescott, Marcus Mariota I've heard floated around. It's definitely crunching down, like the quarterback market. It's drying up.
Yeah, that's for sure. I heard the Panthers are also trying to get it in the mix as well. They can definitely use a quarterback. They're a solid offense with a decent defense. I could see them looking for a quarterback. There were reports saying that they would, pretty much give a lot for Deshaun Watson, potentially. I think they said there was like 3 first rounders and Christian McCaffrey, potentially. That is a lot, but, when it comes to a top 5 quarterback, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So, you kind of hit the nail right on the head. Like, the quarterback market definitely is starting to dry up. Now it's kind of like trying to find, what's best for the system at this point now. So we'll have to see what goes on from here on out for the quarterback market. But like on the end note for talk about the trade, I think this trade definitely puts the Eagles probably further down in the NFC East. I don't see them even possibly contending for the NFC East at the moment. We have to kind of see what happens in the offseason. But as of now, with Jalen Hurts the starter and most of their offense, they're probably going to look to probably let go of via trade or release such as Zach Ertz. I think Deshaun Jackson would probably cut him. A couple others, of course. You know, they're kind of going to a full rebuild, so I don't see them even in contention for the NFC East at this point. We'll have to see what happens this offseason for them.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson's obviously going to be a hefty price to pay. So a lot of teams straight up just can't even afford him. So a lot of those teams are already out of the running to even try and trade for Deshaun Watson. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how everything unfolds. But speaking of speculation and trades and all this, JJ Watt got cut by Houston. That it was kind of a surprise to me, but at the same time, not really. Houston Texans, you got to respect him for cutting him, like letting him loose, because I did believe he wanted out, and kind of holding him and trying to trade him. It would have been tougher on JJ Watt than it would have been on the Texans. But JJ Watt's a free agent, completely. He can go wherever the heck he wants, and he's been teasing a lot of places. I'm gonna bring some places up. Why don't you go ahead and tell me the likelihood of it? Packers.
Very likely. It's likely. It's likely. I wouldn't say very likely, but it's likely. Oh, yeah. For the Packers, I mean, I can get more into it later because I had something to say also as well, but I like rather just go on.
Okay, I'm gonna give the Packers. I'd say it's pretty likely as well. Steelers.
At the moment, I would say it seems quite likely. Yeah.
I'm actually gonna say it's not likely. I think the Steelers are. I think they're fine with their line. They don't really need to add JJ Watt to it. I think they're okay with it. It would be cool to see him team up with his brothers, but I'm not exactly sure how many minutes he'd end up getting. Browns.
I know there was one period of time they said he was supposedly seriously considering going to the Browns, but I don't see it necessarily happening. Actually, I think that's actually not very likely.
I think it's somewhat likely. I think it's somewhat feasible. But I don't think it's going to happen. If you forced me to say an answer, I'd say, nah, it's probably not going to happen. The Bills.
Bills. There was mutual interest between the Bills and Watt, but
Bills got a lot of people to pay.
Yeah, they have a lot of people to pay. I would say just due to that, I would say they're probably like in the middle of likely and unlikely. It's just down the middle. I'm not sure on that one.
I'm gonna say it's unlikely. I do believe that the Bills GM said something along the lines of they're really looking to build through the draft this year because they don't have as much money to go out and get big free agents. So unless JJ Watt takes a big pay cut, I don't really see him ending up there. And let's go Bears.
I said that is very unlikely. I do not see that happening whatsoever.
I kind of put this in the same breath as the Browns. I'd say it's somewhat likely. I don't see it, happening, but if it happened, I wouldn't be totally shocked. And the last team I have on here is the Buccaneers.
They would have to pull out some crazy tricks to get Watt. They have a lot of people to pay as well. A lot of people are due for big time paydays as well. So just thinking about Chris Godwin off the top of my head, Jacob Barrett. I think it was also, is it Devin White or was it Levante David? I think it was Levante David who was also due for a big contract. Yeah, so I highly doubt Watt go to the Bucs.
I think it's decently likely. I think it's a good chance. If he does go to the Bucs, he obviously would have to take a pay cut. But at the same time, if he views that as like this could get me a ring, maybe that incentivizes him to take a pay cut. Maybe he grabs a 1-year deal and just jumps on the Bucs. I think I could see it happening. Oh, I do also want to bring up. I've heard some people say the Chiefs. I really don't think so. I mean, they really have enough money to even? Once again, he'd have to take a massive pay cut. He'd obviously help their line a bunch, but like, would they even have enough to really entice him to stay? I don't know.
No, I don't see the Chiefs either, to be honest. I'm surprised I didn't bring up the Titans. The Titans were a team that were also interested in Watt, but I don't see Watt going there. I feel like Watt probably wants to go to a more sure contender. So I would feel like they would probably be out of the mix due to that fact alone.
Yeah, I agree. And you said you had some thoughts about the Packers and all that. Why don't you go ahead
Yeah,
and share?
before that, I want to just touch on some other people trying to recruit Watt that I thought was quite entertaining. Dexter Lawrence from the Cowboys. He wanted Watt to come over to the Cowboys. I don't see that happening at all. And I don't know if you saw on Instagram, but DeAndre Hopkins posted a picture, yeah, him and Watt in the Arizona Cardinals uniform together. That was kind of funny. Don't see that happening anytime soon, but I thought that was kind of entertaining to say the least. But for me, I think that the Packers are the most likely to happen because if you watch the video, if you just know anything about JJ Watt in general, JJ Watt played college ball over at the University of Wisconsin. He has a lot of ties with Wisconsin because, he was born in Wisconsin. Obviously, he was raised in Wisconsin. If you watch the video I was saying earlier, he was decked out in Wisconsin gear. And for me, it just kind of felt like he was ready to go home. And, Green Bay is a contender, which that's what he wants to play for at the moment. Green Bay is in Wisconsin, which is his home. The team can definitely use another edge rusher. And if you didn't notice, they are breaking up, not breaking up, but they are making cap space in general. I don't know if you've been monitoring the moves or not. Like David Beckery, I think he reconstructed his bonus of his contract to create some cap space. They haven't signed back Aaron Jones, which would be a lot of cap space. So I'm thinking maybe they could be leaving that cap space open to make potential move at Watt. That's how I kind of have seen it as of recent. Now, is getting a player like JJ Watt their biggest need? No, it's not. I think they can definitely use more help in the safety position or just in the secondary in general. But it's just how I think about Washington. You have to strengthen your strengths. You have to go with the best option to help out the best part of your defense to make it easier for the other parts of your defense. With Washington, they drafted Chase Young. That helped out the front line. Their defensive front line, and it made you forget. Sometimes it made you forget watching their games how rough their secondary could be at times. Obviously, they got exposed in the Buccaneers game in the playoffs, of course, but throughout the season, that front line was the thing everyone kept talking about for Washington. It made you it kind of put their secondary play in the back of your head. So I'm thinking as bad as or as rough as their secondary was in the playoffs for the Packers, maybe adding another edge rusher could possibly help take some pressure off of the secondary. So that's how I kind of see it with Green Bay. That's why I think it could be likely. But we'll have to see, honestly, JJ Watt. Any opinion on that part?
Yeah, I have noticed they've been making a lot of cap room. At first, I thought it was because maybe they want to sign maybe an Allen Robinson or something to help with the receiving core. But you're right. I think JJ Watt would be. I think he'd be a good fit. You're right. They do need safety help. They do need secondary help for sure. But the more people you put on the line, the easier it is on the guys in the secondary. So yeah, in my opinion, I think his most likely destination is Green Bay, but I wouldn't be surprised at any of the names or any of the teams I just named. And just about every team could really use JJ Watt. Let's be real. These are just kind of the teams that are looking to try and contend that JJ Watt might think, hey, I could push this team over. Besides the Bears, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you also see that Von Miller got? I believe he's in talks, isn't he, to get cut or traded?
Yeah, I think there's some off-field stuff he's been getting into as of recent. So, I'm just hoping that he's okay mentally and, he can get back on track. Because I know as a player, he's a great player, but obviously with off-field things, that does kind of get in the way at certain times. And I feel like at this moment, it could be. I forgot the severity of it, but I do remember there was some comments and things he said that were just didn't seem it just seemed out of character and just seemed very not like him. But you know, I just hope he's gonna be okay. I just hope that his situation gets dealt with properly, and if he does get cut, I wish him the best. I hope he can find the help he needs.
Yeah, I'm not too educated on what exactly happened behind the scenes there, but if he does return if he does come back to football, a lot of teams could be interested in wanting to take him on. He's still a very effective player even at his age. So yeah, those are kind of the biggest names kind of speculating about all that stuff. We talked about Dak Prescott last podcast, so if you are wondering where Dak might end up, check out the podcast from last week. And then we're gonna round out the NFL stuff with Alex Smith. What's next for Alex Smith, man?
You know, what his story of his comeback and all that happened this year, you can't really take anything away from it. It was impressive to see him play, even though he doesn't have the best stats if you look at it on paper. Just watching him and knowing what he had to go through to come back and play, it was inspiring to say the least. But due to his injury and with the window of opportunity that's present for the Washington football team, I do see them most likely cutting him. I think it would save them $10 million in cap space, which they definitely can use to get a receiver, potentially a quarterback, or whatever else they need, to be honest. Smith's already said outright that he's not going to retire in 2021 season. And, I don't see Washington wanting to keep him. So for me, how I see what's next for him, the two places I actually see that's what's next for him is possibly New England or Jacksonville. Now, the reason why I have New England as one of the options for me, I feel like he'll probably come in there to back up Stidham or whoever they decide to play, but their quarterback is at its weakest. So it is a chance that he could even start over in New England. I think if New England can get him cheap, which they probably will, I feel like Alex Smith will probably take any opportunity to come back and play. They'll probably use him as a bridge quarterback, kind of a piece they use to kind of transition into the next part of their future. But like I said, to get them cheap, this can help them spend money elsewhere, such as the wide receiver position, which we saw how bad that was this year about Edelman. And even with Edelman, they didn't even look the most impressive either. Tight end position was arguably probably the worst positions they had in the league this year. And they can just use that money to probably prop up other positions around the team in general. And Alex Smith, he's not a gunslinger. He's not going to throw 60-yard passes. He's never been that kind of guy. So them having a time managing quarterback like Alex Smith wouldn't hurt their offense, because if you saw their stats offensively, it wasn't the prettiest. So I think Alex Smith could be okay, even decent, on a team like the Patriots. And then for Jacksonville, the reason I chose them is because he has tied with his then Utah coach, now new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Urban Meyer. This team is not looking to compete anytime soon. I think he can definitely come in there more so as a veteran presence and mentor Trevor Lawrence, who I think definitely going to be the first pick of the first round. And even possibly, no one really talks about with Smith, but to some extent he could possibly bring a winning culture over to Jacksonville. No, I know he hasn't won any Super Bowls or anything like that, but as a starter for Washington, he was 11-5. And as a starter for the Chiefs, he was 50-26. And even with Lawrence's recovery from his shoulder injury, which was just kind of to clean up the shoulder, if he's not ready for the season, hypothetically speaking, we could see Alex Smith get some playing time. I don't know if, it depends on how they feel, because obviously there is still Gardner Minshew. I think they might have someone else, but really just Gardner Minshew for the most part. But I think that he could just definitely come in there and just mentor the young guys and get them on the right track and get them into a better mindset.
Yeah, I really like those teams you just named to go to. I actually was kind of going in a different route for Alex Smith. I kind of think that, I don't really think he's ever really going to start again unless a major injury happens to somebody, uh, which sucks because I really like Alex Smith, and I love his story of how he came back, and it was just incredible to see. But he's not at the level of a normal starting quarterback in the NFL. He can fill in for you and he can definitely carry you to some wins, but he's not gonna like take you through a whole season. I don't think most people really see him as that either. I don't think most people consider him a year long starter. But to be honest, I kind of was looking at it more as like maybe he goes to Indianapolis and backs up Carson Wentz because Carson Wentz is injury prone, and that could be a good opportunity for him to get some minutes right there. And this is also what I'm thinking. Does Indianapolis really want to give up a first round pick? They might only play uh, Carson Wentz maybe 70% of their snaps just to try and only give up a second. That's something that they might do. So if they do decide to do that, they might, Alex Smith could help with that, and he could definitely fill in at times, maybe play half a quarter or something like that. And then I also considered maybe he goes to the LA Rams. Stafford, we don't exactly know how he's going to look. He's also had some injuries in the past. And if Stafford isn't exactly living up to expectations, Sean McVay is not, he benched Jared Goff when he could have played in the first round for that. I forgot his name exactly, but their backup quarterback, and he gave him a chance.
Wolford.
Yes, Wolford. I could definitely see, if Stafford isn't playing up to snuff, if they're not really satisfied with what he's doing, maybe they slap an Alex Smith, like, here you go, like, just go out and do something, try and make something happen. So those are the kind of the two places I saw for him. That would probably be one of the best places. But I just wish Alex Smith luck. He At the very end of his career, I would love to see him just go to Washington and just be a quarterback coach. I think he would be a fantastic quarterback coach. His story in general is just enough to inspire whatever quarterback he's working with, or at least it should be. So I think his future once he is done with the league, I think he could be a fantastic quarterback coach, and I'd love to see him return to Washington just because they've already kind of embraced him. They're that's the place where he came back. So it sucks to see him kind of leave Washington, but it's kind of for the best both ways because he would likely be a third string in DC as opposed to maybe a backup somewhere else. So, it sucks to see Alex Smith leave, but I wish him luck, and he's had a great career. So,
Yeah, I mean, people forget that he had such a great career because a lot of it was overshadowed by just a lot of losses in the postseason and stuff like that. He's a pretty winning quarterback for most part. I think he has a winning record over for his overall career. Don't forget how solid he was with the Chiefs. Yes, the Chiefs weren't the most impressive team, and they weren't the team that we see now. But he was the precursor for Mahomes. He did teach Mahomes a lot of stuff before he did leave. Mahomes, I think, in an interview after the Super Bowl a couple of years ago or a year ago, he did give credit to Alex Smith for why he is who he is. So, how I see it is Alex Smith doesn't get a lot of credit for a lot of the stuff he has achieved. People always just kind of think of him as the guy like, oh, he got replaced by, Colin Kaepernick. Oh, he got replaced by Patrick Mahomes. Oh, he got replaced by Taylor Heineke. Oh, he got like he's much more than that. I feel like he's such a good quarterback. You know, no, I know his stats don't really speak like it, but if you watch his games and just watch the way he played winning football, and that's at the end of the day, it's all that really matters. So a lot of credit to him. I do hope for him, hope the best for him, and I just hope that wherever he goes next, they embrace him like he was embraced in his previous locations.
yeah, and I mean, he's just a great dude in general. I mean, when you're kind of an older quarterback and there's a young guy behind you, it's kind of easy to just be like, man, screw this guy. I still want to play. But, Alex Smith, the fact that he took the time to mentor Colin Kaepernick and mentor Patrick Mahomes and all that, and even mentor Taylor Heineke and everybody else on the Washington team in general. The fact that he still takes that time to really mentor and give everybody a fair shot. He does. I've never really heard him complain over his entire career for the most part, over minutes or anything. He's just a fantastic dude. He's a dude I would love to have in the locker room. Uh, and you're right. Like I said before, I wish him the best. But let's go ahead and jump right into some NBA news. So as we are recording this, actually, I do believe the All-Star starters have been announced. Uh, this shouldn't really be any surprise. It was mostly just the people that were leading in general. So in the East, it was Kyrie, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. And Kevin Durant was named the captain, so he's going to be picking his lineup. And then in the West, the All Stars were Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Nikola Jokic. And LeBron's the captain again for the fourth straight All Star game. And yeah, it's not much of a surprise. We talked about our All Star predictions on the last podcast. We also have a clip of it on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested, you can find us on YouTube at Speed Truth Sports if you're listening on the podcasting apps. And if you are watching on YouTube, go click to it real quick and jump back. Yeah, so we already kind of talked about our starters, so we can kind of scoot past that. But there was a little bit of controversy over Damian Lillard versus Luka Doncic. There's kind of a big thing going on Twitter right now where people are like, Dame deserved it, not Luka. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, Dame's playing on a winning team. That's my biggest thing for him. Luka's stats wise, I mean, it's probably, I think stats wise is better than Dame's. Also, just the fact that I feel like if Luka didn't play, that team would even be close to the playoffs right now, or even the record they even have now, because they're not in the playoff mix at the moment. But I mean, yeah, I give credit where credit is due. I think Dame should have got it. I think Dame, he's always been kind of underrated, underlooked. You know, what they're doing in Portland right now, I mean, people thought that after McCollum, Nurkic, with those injuries, I thought they'd be like, oh, this team's probably gonna slide a lot of games and just kind of like fall out of the playoffs and then try to work their way back when the other two come back later on. But they've been holding their own. I mean, gotta give credit where credit is due as well for Melo. Melo's been playing very well as well as not as well as Dame, but playing as well, and which was not expected. But Dame is the leading charge of that team. I kind of, I mean, I had Luka as my pick, but I can see why people would think Dame should be a All-Star. I mean, it can kind of go either way for me. Sometimes it's just much more than stats. I think right now, I think it's because Luka's probably more popular and he has the stats. But like, if you watch impact, I think Dame's probably more impactful at the moment. So, is what it is.
Yeah, so currently, as of when we're recording this, the Trailblazers are fourth in the West. They climbed up to fourth. They're 18-10. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks are 13-15, and they are 10th in the West. I see where people are coming from with why Dame should have been in, and I do kind of agree. If we're just kind of going off straight up skill and who's been leading their team the best and also wins, Dame has been better this season, in my opinion, so far. But the fan vote is it's just mostly popularity, and so even if Luka doesn't exactly get the votes over Dame with the media vote and the player vote, the fan vote's 50% of the vote, and the media is 25%. The players 25%. So the fan vote, if he's still overwhelmingly above Dame, he's probably going to get in straight up. So he did get in. The only argument I can really see to put Luka in over Dame as a starter is that, like you said, like without Luka, the Mavericks would be probably the worst team in the West. But also, Dame just has a lot more talent around him. He's dealt with a lot more injuries, though. That's the thing. His team has been injured a lot this year. They're missing their starting center. They're missing their star shooting guard. They're missing a lot of players, but they're still getting wins. I think that's commendable enough. I think Dame probably should have been the starter. I said on the All-Star picks that if it was up to me, it would be Donovan Mitchell, and I still stick by that. But if we're just talking about Dame or Luka, I'd probably put Dame above Luka in my opinion. All right, but let's go ahead and move on from that. I want to talk a little bit about John Wall's return to DC. Okay, as everyone should know by now, hopefully, I am a Washington Wizards fan, and I was down bad when John Wall got traded. I was very down bad. But over time, I've kind of learned to live with it. It is what it is. But watching John Wall absolutely cook the Wizards was just, man, it was a very tough thing to watch. Even though the Wizards did get the win, the Rockets put up a really good fight, and John Wall was straight up. He was leading basically a G League roster at that point. They had lost, I believe, every single starter except for John Wall. Everybody was out basically for that game, and John Wall still put up 29 and 11, like just a classic John Wall stat line, like from 2017 or even earlier. Uh, but the one thing I really want to bring up is like the blatant disrespect from the Wizards franchise about his tribute video. I understand there was no fans in the arena, so it's kind of weird maybe just playing it to one person, just playing a tribute video. But this guy's been here for 10 years. He was our golden boy for 10 years. He was our franchise's number one pick. He had so many great moments in the playoffs, in the regular season, and even off the court, just off the court, he's done so much for DC. He was the heart and soul of DC while he was here. The city really embraced him, and he embraced everybody back. The John Wall Family Foundation is incredible. They've done so much for the city of DC, and just in general, John Wall won the Community Assist Award in 2016. If that doesn't show how committed he is to the community and how beloved he is by the community, I don't know what will. And the owner, Ted Leonsis, and they should know this. They should know how much John Wall means to the people of DC. And they should have played the tribute before the game, because they played about I believe a 40-second tribute during a timeout. During the game, it was like, I believe, like 7 minutes into the game, somebody called a timeout finally, and then they played the tribute. And you know what John Wall was doing? Talking to his teammates, because he's in a game. He's in the middle of a game. He was talking to his teammates. He was talking to his coaches. He wasn't paying any type of attention to the video because it was in the game. He's locked in the moment. What do you expect him to do? Just drop everything and look up? Like, how selfish would that look of John Wall to do that in front of his teammates? It was just it was so disrespectful to have your franchise player for 10 years, when he comes back, to just give him a 40-second tribute in a timeout. That's just so disrespectful, in my opinion. I really, really dislike what they did to John Wall. And I feel like they still continue to disrespect John Wall. John Wall had talked about how he's waiting for fans to come back into the arena, because those are the people he loves the most. He loves the fans in DC, and he loves the people that are playing in DC. So he loves our roster and all that. He never mentioned anything really good about the front office. I mean, the front office straight up lied to him. Straight up. There was an article on The Athletic about what really happened, like when John Wall was being traded. And John Wall had said that they told him the Russell Westbrook trade was just, it wasn't true. It wasn't really going to happen. None of that was going to happen. And they straight up lied to him and traded him like a few days later. So, the front office has just been so tactless with how they've approached John Wall. I legitimately feel bad for him. And it just sucks as a Wizards fan to watch the dude that I grew up watching for the most part was John Wall. And it just sucks to watch him be treated like this by the franchise. It's just so disrespectful. The fan base loves him. He's like the most beloved DC player, I think, of the modern era, I guess, because Wes Unseld, I'm sure, was very popular, and Elvin Hayes and all them in the 70s. But from the 2000s and up, John Wall is probably the most beloved Wizards player from the 2000s and up. And just to treat him the way they did, it legitimately, it really soured my opinion on the Wizards franchise. And I really, I really hope they do better than this. It just felt really petty. You know what they also did? A lot of people don't know this. This is mostly like Wizards fan stuff, but like they had an announcer named Steve Buckhantz, who was he was an announcer for them for like 40 years or something, 30 or 40 years, something like that. And they did him dirty, and they didn't tell him that they were releasing him on his contract until it was up. So he didn't even really, the writing was kind of on the wall, but he didn't really know until they just said, yeah, we don't want you back. Like they didn't give him any type of warning in advance. Like, hey, like this is like, we're not exactly looking to bring you back. Like we're looking to kind of move on. They didn't give him any type of warning in advance. They just cut him, which is also extremely disrespectful. I don't like how this franchise is handling letting people go or trading people or any of that stuff. Uh, and they didn't use any footage that Buckhantz narrated in or spoke over in the tribute. They didn't use a single bit of footage. His voice was not in that tribute at all. And that's just petty. At that point, that's just very petty, in my opinion, because he called a lot of John Wall's biggest plays and biggest highlights. And his iconic line was the dagger. Like he kind of invented that. And they like just to not hear a single time, just to not hear a single dagger during that tribute video when he said dagger to John Wall shots many times. Just to hear not a single one is just ridiculous. It's very unprofessional, very tactless, and very petty by the Wizards front office, and I'm really not happy about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I felt like, I mean, John Wall said it the last time they played when they were in Houston, that it just kind of felt like they gave up on him. And kind of felt like they thought he was washed. They kind of thought he was done for. And, he's been playing, quite well in Houston. I do tune in to some Houston games just to watch John Wall play because, for me, I don't know if you guys know this, but I also am a Wizards fan. And the person that got me into Wizards basketball, was John Wall. Yeah, I did watch, come in and watch a couple of Arenas games, but that was near the end and around the time where he had the incident, of course. And then I did, when they were really bad, with Andre Blatches leading, like the main leader of the team, it was hard to watch them. It was, I remember the coach Eddie Jordan. I remember how bad the team was. And then they got John Wall, and John Wall was this young guy, came into the Dougie first thing. I was like, okay, this guy's some swag, rocking with it, I'm a young kid, so I'm just like, I got attached. And, I remember so many games and all the stuff he'd done for, DC. I'll never forget. I feel like that's the only highlight they always show in like the website, like Bleacher Report and other things like that. But the shot he had against the Celtics to push it to Game 7, I think it was 2016 playoffs. 2017 season for the 2017 playoffs, and just I know they lost Game 7, but man, just to watch that live, it meant so much. I don't think the team has made the playoffs since John Wall's been predominantly injured. So to let him go and boot him off and give him a 45 to 40, like 40 second to 45 second, video to tribute is just tacky. I also agree that it should have been the beginning of the game. I think when Kyrie had his tribute video with the Cavaliers when they played the Nets early this season, he had his video before the game, of course. I feel like, and he was there. I mean, yeah, he won a championship with LeBron, and he spent a good amount of years with the Cavs. But I felt like John Wall, at one period of time, he was the Wizards. Bradley. It was Bradley Beal and John Wall, but Wall was the start. He was the guy. Like, if it wasn't for Wall, I'm not gonna say I don't think Beal would be the player he is now, but I feel like he did play a lot into Beal's development. I remember early on when Beal came out of Florida, he was kind of, a bit of a spotty shooter. A lot of injuries, it felt like, in the beginning of his career. But I felt like John Wall was able to hold that together, and I felt like they developed so well together. And just to see him get traded and lied to and get traded. It was just, I feel like as a fan, I got lied to as well, and I felt betrayed by the front office. I always kind of felt like Ted Leonsis, as the owner of the Wizards, just never really cared about the Wizards because he also does own the Washington Capitals, who have won a Stanley Cup. I think that was back in 2017, if I recall correctly. 2017, 2018, somewhere around that time frame. But he always just put more money into the hockey program, obviously more so than the Wizards. And, it kind of shows that he just never really, for me, never really cared about the Wizards. So what he did to John Wall, as shocking as it should be, if you know him or know about him as the owner, it's not the most surprising thing. I mean, even with the Capitals, when they won the Stanley Cup, they kind of let their coach go like it was nothing, and they haven't played as well as they should have been playing the past few years. I just felt like if they really wanted to keep going with their winning culture, they would keep the same coach they just won with, but they didn't. And I just felt like Washington Wizards, if they want to try to get back to where they were before John Wall's injury and how well they were playing then, should have just kept John Wall, played out. I think they should have let him play it out this season before potentially even thinking of a trade, because when it comes to John Wall, he had such a big contract and they never let him even play up to the money they spent for him. We never got to see him play under that big contract as a Wizard. He just got sent over to the Houston Rockets. And, no disrespect to Russell Westbrook. He's been playing fairly okay. I'm not going to get too much on him because he's just, for me, he's a good player. But right now, he's a great player. But right now, he's just like, his shooting's very rough. It's kind of hard to watch at times. He does do a very good job dishing the ball out and getting rebounds. But, I don't think at the moment he plays. Well, now I think they broke their threshold, because at one point they had more wins without Russell Westbrook than they did with. But I think now they've broken that up, and I think they have about 5 wins with him now and 4 without him. I'm getting too much into that, but I just feel like with John Wall, they should have let him play a lot more. They should have let him played under that contract. I feel like they should have trusted him when he was going through rehab. I mean, they literally watched this man literally go through rehab, go through it all, and they were there for him at the time. At least I thought they were there for him until they saw him. Oh, he's trading value now. Let's just get rid of him. And I just felt like they could have done more to protect such a big franchise player like Wall. So what happened on the game they played the Rockets recently, it's like, if you know much about that front office, it shouldn't really come of too much surprise, which is disappointing and it's upsetting. And, as a Wizards fan, I try not to think about the front office as much, but, they hold on to they do a lot of bad things. And, I just felt like this was very disappointing as a Wizards fan. I just felt like they could have done a lot more. It was nice to see John Wall, put up his 29 and 11. I think that's his season highs this year. But, I just wish there was some way they could have done more, to respect such a big player like Wall. Because he, like you were saying, he's done so much for the community of Washington, D.C. He's done so much for the team. And just to do him like that, I'm just annoyed. Yeah. I'm kind of sick to my stomach a little bit, but just annoyed.
Yeah, and even John Wall had talked about in the article that was written by The Athletic. It was on The Athletic, written by Fred Katz, I believe. John Wall had said that, his biggest regret is that he didn't get to just run it back one last time with him and Bradley Beal. And so all the noise about Bradley Beal doesn't want John Wall or all that, no. What really was going on was that Scott Brooks didn't want John Wall, and the owner, Ted Leonsis, didn't want John Wall. So they kind of forced Tommy Shepard's hand into making that move. But even still, I just don't understand why they traded him when his value was at its very lowest, unless they genuinely didn't believe that he was going to come back himself. They they did talk about John Wall did talk about how he thinks one of the main reasons was because that video came out about him like throwing up the gang signs. Uh, but why is it only a problem when he's off the court? He did it on the court during a playoff game. He flashed gang signs. They didn't say anything about that because they were winning. They were in the playoffs. Now all of a sudden they're losing. He's come back from a big injury, and they're like, "Wow, now it's a big deal." Like, I don't know about that. I think it was a very lame excuse for the Wizards front office to kind of dump him at that point. And in general, just I mean, for the people who think John Wall and Bradley Beal didn't get along, like you're tripping. Like Bradley Beal was there, like Bradley Beal was literally there as John Wall's mom, was in the hospital and passing away from cancer. Bradley Beal was there with him. He is his brother. I mean, those two are very close. They're good friends. They still talk. They still talk every day. They both said it. Those two are they're brothers forever at this point. They've been together so long. You don't stay on a team for 10 years if you don't like the guy you're playing with. If you really don't like the other star that you're playing with, you don't stay on a team for 10 years. I think David Aldridge kept trying to push that narrative of Wall and Beal don't like each other. Completely false. And John Wall even said that, when he got traded, the first person that called him was Bradley Beal. And they both just talked and they both just started crying because they realized they couldn't run it back one last time. Like John Wall's a good dude, Bradley Beal's a good dude, but they just did John Wall so dirty. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did Bradley Beal dirty. Genuinely. I really am losing hope in the Wizards franchise in general. My biggest fear for the Wizards is that they sneak into the 8th seed and then they extend Scott Brooks. That is my biggest nightmare for the Wizards. But yeah, just every time I see the Wizards versus the Rockets, if someone were to ask me who are you rooting for, I'm gonna say John Wall. I'm not gonna say the Wizards because of how dirty they did him. I still support the Wizards and I still root for them, but I am not. I advise all Wizards fans out there to just stop financially supporting the Wizards organization until they get their act together and become more professional about the way they do things. Like this is just ridiculous. Uh, I'd say stop financially supporting them. Don't really go to games and all that. Trying to buy merch, stuff like that. But I just think that look, next year when fans are going to be in the arena, if they don't play another tribute video, if they don't run it back and do him right, I'm genuinely going to be extremely angry at the Wizards organization. And I know the fans in the arena are going to be just as angry too. They're going to be cheering every single time Wall hits any type of shot. And I haven't seen a Wizards game sold out in a very long time. But I know that when John Wall finally comes back to DC with fans, that arena will completely be sold out. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. So yeah, there's everything about John Wall. big. I get a lot of stuff off my chest, and then you did too, from what it seems.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with Scott, I think my biggest concern is if they do end up doing another star player such like Bill wrong, I kind of hope that the Wizards don't go down the path where they get rid of everybody but the wrong person, which is Scott Brooks. I feel like Scott Brooks is the heart of the issue. Him and John Wall not getting along. I think they got in an argument a couple years ago to practice, and he cussed out Brooks, and I think Brooks cried or something like that. It was a report like that a while back. I just feel like that probably what started the issues between those two, them not just getting along, and him. I feel like if Scott Brooks really did play a part in John Wall being traded, shame on Brooks because they could definitely use John Wall this year. They can, they should have definitely run it back. No disrespect to Russell Westbrook. He's an all-star, not this year, but he's been previous all-star, former MVP, a great player. But John Wall and the Wizards, it just fit a lot more. So, I just hope for the best with Wall. I hope the Wizards do get their act together as well. But there's a lot. I guess there's a good amount of season still left, so we'll have to see what happens with them.
And something I do want to bring up just to end it is that John Wall has always been one of the most upfront, honest people ever. I mean, just the fact that he let just about everything loose in this interview with Fred Katz just shows it. I mean, he's upfront and honest. He values honesty and loyalty over everything. That's the type of dude John Wall is. And that's not what the organization was giving to him in the end. They didn't give him that honesty, and they apparently they didn't believe in him. They didn't believe in him, otherwise they wouldn't have traded him. Let's be real. Um, yeah, and John Wall is also, even after that gang sign video came out, he called each individual front office member, he called each individual player, and he apologized to every single person. He did what he was supposed to do. He took it like a man, and he just said, "I'm going to apologize for what I've done," and he did. And the organization still was hung up on that video coming out. When, let's be real, everyone forgot about it in like a couple weeks. Everyone completely forgot about that video. So yeah, just on an ending note, they did John Wall dirty. They better do him right when there's fans in the arena, and when they bring him back, they better do him right. That's at that time. Otherwise, I'm going to be very angry, and I'm sure a lot of Wizards fans are going to be very, very angry. But let's go ahead and just move on from all that. Let's jump to Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. So there's been a lot of speculation about these two getting traded. They've actually been sat down by their teams. They're being benched until they work out a trade or a buyout, which is strange in Blake Griffin's case because the buyout would have to be like $70 million plus. I'm not sure if the owner would like really agree to a buyout on Blake Griffin's massive deal. It's kind of ridiculous. And Andre Drummond, it makes more sense for why he would be bought out. But his value in general, just from what I've heard, is like a couple of second rounders. That's kind of where his value's at. A lot of people kind of overvalue him. He's, in my opinion, he's kind of one of those centers that they put up great numbers, but he doesn't have a tremendous impact on the game, if that makes sense. If you watch the game, a lot of times he does kind of ball hog, and he just, half his rebounds are from his own misses. Let's be real. So, his numbers look a lot better than what he is putting out on the court, and that's why his value is so low. Other teams are seeing it too. Obviously, it's why otherwise his value would be way higher with the numbers he's putting up. There's been some teams that have been interested, and those teams are the Nets, Lakers, Celtics, Raptors, Hornets, and Blazers. This is just for Drummond. What do you think with Drummond? Do you think he's going to end up on one of these teams? Is he going to be bought out? Is he going to be traded? What team do you think he'd fit best on? All that.
So it comes to Andre Drummond. I think the best. Well, did you say the Celtics as well or no? For the
Nets,
okay.
Lakers, Celtics, Raptors, Hornets, and Blazers.
Okay, well, out of those teams, I think the best one would probably be the Nets. Now, I know I feel like that's kind of cliche, and I feel like everyone's probably said that. For honorable mention, I wouldn't just mention just the Celtics. I think that's another team that would definitely benefit because they do need a big. With the Celtics, I think they're in the bottom half of the league in rebounding and blocks. So, and like you said, I know Drummond doesn't put up the most. I mean, he puts up more glamorous stats than he actually, plays. But he does average about a block or so. So they could definitely use that regardless. The Celtics just need, size in general. But back to my main point, Nets were the best pick for me because how I see it, DeAndre Jordan is just not as effective as he used to be back in the day when he was with the Clippers and even, with the Mavericks. Yes, I do agree that Drummond's play style is outdated and he does lack a jumper, which is pretty pivotal in today's game. And, sometimes, what I'm seeing from the Cavs and I think even with the Pistons, sometimes there's times where he has the ball in his hands for too long. However, when it comes to the Nets, between Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, you won't really see the ball in his hands unless, he's getting a rebound or making, certain other plays. The team can still use, can still use post defense. After they got rid of Jared Allen, they definitely could still use that. They haven't really filled that void since then. He's a decent defender, above average. I know he averages around 1.6 steals per game and 1.2 blocks per game. And he has, I think, above average defensive rating and above average defensive box plus minus in the league. So, he's not the greatest defender. He's not the greatest rebounder. He's not the greatest center, but he's good. He's decent. And that's all the team really needs. They just need a decent post defender. They need a decent, rebounder. They just need enough because offensively, like we see the Nets, they're like, I think they were at one point the number one offensive rating team in the NBA. But they, on the flip side, they were the lowest, if not the lowest, defensive rating in the NBA. So, I feel like with Drummond there, he can help improve their defensive rating without really hurting their offensive rating. Because I feel like I said, between Kyrie, Harden, Durant, he won't really be seeing the ball in his hands, and he wouldn't have be in a situation where he is ball handling as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. The Nets are a great place for him as well as the Celtics. The only thing is that the Lakers and the Nets, I don't think they can really afford him unless he gets bought out. So that's what they're kind of hoping for. The Celtics have a big trade exception they can use, but because they're like at the hard cap, they need to also give away like Tristan Thompson or just straight up $9 million worth of money in players to actually acquire uh, Andre Drummond. So if they actually wanted to use the full exception, which they need to, because Andre Drummond's contract is pretty massive, they need to let go of a couple players, probably Tristan Thompson and probably somebody else, which be kind of funny to give Tristan Thompson right back to the Cavs right after he just signed with the Celtics. But look, that's why you don't sign with the Celtics. Look, because they're gonna trade you. All right, like
Yeah.
if you sign with the Celtics, you got to know full well like the second a good deal comes up, they will not pass up. You will be gone. They'll like that's it. Uh, so I would feel bad for Tristan Thompson, but at the same time, he's asking for it by signing with the Celtics. Um, the Raptors, I could kind of see what they're going for. Andre Drummond, I don't want to take away from his post defense. His post defense is incredible. He's a very, very solid post defender. He's a very good rim protector. But his, if a small ball five kind of gets switched on to him, he does struggle a bit going out to the perimeter and all that, getting dragged out there. And his offense just isn't the greatest in general either. So, for the Raptors, they're looking for that defensive center just to kind of plant them and steady them. That's kind of how the Raptors go. That's how they've been these past couple of years. They've had a good defensive center in either Marc Gasol or Serge Ibaka. That's kind of anchored their team, so the rest of the team can play more effective defense. So I can kind of see why he goes there. I'm not exactly sure on the logistics of the trade there, but I think it could happen. The Hornets, I'm kind of baffled by why the Hornets are really interested in him. They should kind of be looking to build more on LaMelo. I don't know if they should be looking to compete right now. If they wanted to, if MJ really wanted to, sure, I guess you could pick up Drummond, but that's whatever. The Blazers looking for every type of center possible. Nurkic got injured, and I've said from the moment that it happened that they should not have let Hassan Whiteside go. He was the only one playing any type of defense on Anthony Davis on the Lakers. So if they wanted to be successful and keep moving, they'd have to keep Whiteside. And Whiteside went and signed for like a minimum with the Kings. Um, so here's also my thing with just all these teams that are interested in Andre Drummond. You could get a very similar thing for much less money. And by that, I mean if you trade for maybe Hassan Whiteside or JaVale McGee. They're also very good rim protectors. They're also pretty solid. Just in general, their offense isn't the greatest, but they're both good rim protectors. That's kind of what Drummond is, but Drummond is like $30 million. He's making $30 million as opposed to those guys who are basically on minimums at this point. So, if I'm one of those teams, I would kind of look at it as like why am I dealing this out for Drummond, who's probably going to leave in a year, probably going to leave right after this is done, and who also is kind of looking to pad his stats a little bit because he wants a big extension in this offseason. Why would I really target him when I could look at a JaVale McGee or a Hassan Whiteside? I'm just not sure exactly if he really will get traded. That's kind of the main thing holding his value back is that his deal expires this season, after the season's done. So, he could very well leave you. That's another reason his value is not very high. So, on Drummond, that's kind of what I think about Andre Drummond. I think he probably will get bought out, but I wouldn't be surprised if a team was like, I want to make sure we have him this season and let us have a chance to re-sign him with bird rights in the next season and maybe throw a second rounder in there and try to snag him up. The Celtics never make any moves, so
They need
sorry.
to.
Yeah, sorry, Celtics fans, but Danny Ainge hasn't really made many great moves for a while. Even though they have they had so many assets and they wasted a lot of them, but that's a completely different discussion. But yeah, I mean the Celtics, they should be the ones to do it in my opinion, but they probably will not. That's my guess. They probably will think that they could get him in the offseason or in the free agent market once he's bought out. But it's the Celtics they could have traded for Miles Turner, but they for some reason they want to win every trade completely. They don't want to have a win-win trade. They could have traded Hayward for Miles Turner, which they wouldn't have even needed to solve this problem. Miles Turner is one of the best defensive centers in the league right now. He's averaging, I believe, like 3 blocks a game. That's pretty ridiculous. That's kind of exactly what the Celtics need. And Danny Ainge didn't pull the trigger on that for whatever reason. And it's really cost the team a lot so far going through the season. But yeah, if they did do the Andre Drummond move, it would definitely be like a desperation, like we need to use a trade exception kind of a move. But I can't see them doing it.
Yeah, I think also the Celtics had a chance to trade for Drew Holiday and trade Kimba, but they some weird things didn't get ironed out. So, they had an opportunity to really add defense this year. It sounds like because Drew Holiday or Miles Turner, both of them are good defensive players. So they did have an opportunity to elevate their team, but I just feel like Danny Ainge was too afraid. And I think he made a report saying, I think it was a recent report saying that he said if there's someone to blame for the Celtics not being good right now, it's Danny Ainge. He said that himself. So I'm glad he's at least taking some accountability, but that's nice. But instead of telling us it's your fault, make a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like you're the GM, do something about it. Don't tell us it's your fault. We know it's your fault. You're the one at the helm. Make a difference.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just touching on Blake Griffin, I don't think he's going to be traded at all. I've heard nothing about any team really even being interested in Blake Griffin.
I've heard one, but I don't think they'll do it because of. I don't think they'll trade for him, but they'll do it if it's a contract buyout. I heard, and that's the Lakers.
Yeah, but the Lakers are looking for everybody. Which is why they're looking so good right now is because they're never satisfied with the roster. They're always trying to improve it. But here's the thing about Blake Griffin, right? He's making, I believe, $36 million this season. And his stats are horrendous. Just genuinely, they're horrendous. He's averaging 12 points,
career low,
4 assists.
I think I'm not sure if it's a career low, but it might be
higher than what he usually does actually. But field goal percentage is 36.5%. 3-point percentage is 31.5%. Free throw percentage 71, and all that. He is having a terrible season, straight up. And of course, he doesn't really play much defense. He's lost a lot of his athleticism. The injuries have kind of taken their toll on him, sadly. It's sad to see. I loved watching Blake Griffin when he was on the last year with the Clippers because he was hailing the ball. He was dishing out assists. He was fun to watch, very fun to watch. Even his first year in Detroit was fun to watch. But, the injuries have really been catching up to him, and he just doesn't have that same bounce anymore. He hasn't dunked since, I believe, December of 2019. I believe that's he is – I hate to say this, but he's kind of washed right now. That's what it seems like. And so I don't see a team taking on $36 million this year and $38 million next year because he's on a player option. But he's going to accept the player option. He's not making $38 million from anybody else, even over the stretch of like a few years if he gets a big contract. But no, he is going to take that player option. So you're going to have to deal with $36 million tied up to one player, which is like 30% of the cap, and then also $38 million the next year. So it's not even an expiring deal. If they buy him out, that would be ridiculous because the owner would have to pay like $70 million. If they really don't want him on the roster that bad, I don't know, man. Would any team even want him on the roster? If the Pistons don't even want him, that's kind of It's strange, man. It's strange. I'm not too confident about Blake Griffin being traded at all.
Yeah, I don't see him being traded. I think his contract. I know we were talking about in the NFL that no contract's untradeable, but the different sport, and Blake Griffin is playing on career lows on a big contract. I do see this as an untradeable contract because he's not producing. Um, I mean, my thing is like if they do a buyout, which could be possible. I'm not gonna rule it out completely. Like I said, the Lakers would make sense for him to go there. You know, their front court can definitely use some depth. With Montrezl Harrell, they have an old Marc Gasol and then Markieff Morris, who averages only 15 minutes off the bench. With AD typically being hurt throughout most of the season, not most of the season, but typically being hurt most seasons. This is just a depth signing. That's what it all would be for the Lakers, a depth signing. So, because they're not going to expect him to be the guy he was when he was a Clipper, or even when he first started out with the Pistons. They just need him another body, another big body in the front court. And that's what the Lakers would use him as. But that's if and only if a contract buyout does happen. But like you said, you mentioned multiple times, if a contract as big as his, I think Blake Griffin's probably just get some rest. Probably going to try to start playing him after the All Star weekend or after trade deadline. But I don't see him sitting out the whole season or sitting out too much longer because they're probably going to end up realizing like, hey, this contract's too big and no one wants to pay that much money for someone playing that poorly. So I mean, they got to figure it out. Whatever the situation is, they got to figure it out with the Pistons because that's a hard contract to make a good deal for.
Yeah, I agree. And with that, I think we should just jump to the rookie report card. So we're going to be grading each rookie so far, picks 1 through 14. We're just doing the lottery today. Next week, we're going to look at some more rookies that are outside the lottery that have made a big impact. But for this week, we're just looking at the lottery 1 through 14, and we're going to be grading each player from A plus to F, just on how well they've done this season. So, do you want to kick it off, or should I?
I'll kick it off with the first pick. The first pick obviously was Anthony Edwards from Georgia. He's currently averaging 14.6 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game on 38% shooting and 31% from three. So he started out the season kind of slow and he came off the bench, which was quite baffling to think that, you're the first pick and you're coming off the bench on a bad team. That's the thing, on a bad team. But he did because the coach is also not the best coach either, which I said it in a previous podcast. But obviously with injuries and then him playing well off the bench, he did, secure a starting part. As a starter, he had scored in the double digits except for one game in his 11 starts, and he's currently averaging over 20 points in his last 6 games. Just out recency bias, he's been playing really well. I kind of hope for him to kind of play well because, you don't draft the guy that high up and he just is a complete, well, you don't, obviously when you draft him, you kind of hope they come out and play well. Obviously they're hoping for a bust, of course. And at one point people did call him a bust, which was, I didn't understand that either. But obviously he's kind of quieted everyone down and he's kind of playing well. So as of right now, I gotta give him a solid B.
A B. You're being rough with your grades. All right,
I give him a solid B.
I'm giving him an A. I think
Really?
this is a lot off recency bias, but just if you kind of watched his game as the season's gone on, he's just been getting better and better and better. He's aging like fine wine right now. And he, as of when we're recording this, he like yesterday, like just dropped almost a 30 piece on the Lakers. So who are a very good defensive team. And he just looks so impressive. He looks so confident out there. He looked like a future potential star, genuinely. And just since ever since D'Lo he's gone down with injuries in these past couple games, he's really stepped it up. He's really taken on that secondary scoring role to Cat. And Cat actually hasn't been scoring as much. He's still coming back from COVID, so that all that makes sense. But he's just been very, very good. He's getting more confident as he plays, and like it's just fun to watch him because he's always got a smile on his face whenever he does anything. I mean, he hit a three right in front of LeBron's face and just walked off smiling. You gotta love the energy that kid like produces. I think he's been doing fantastic. I give him an A, TBH. Uh, let's jump to James Wiseman. I'll kick off on this one. I gave James Wiseman a B plus, and to be fair, to be fair, I am also comparing him to every other rookie in his class. So, just in general, I think James Wiseman he's been pretty solid. He's actually averaging, I believe he's averaging 40% from the 3-point line, which is pretty ridiculous. Oh, that's my bad. I pulled the stats and a video played. So yeah, he's averaging 12 points a game. He's 50% from the field. And he's just in general, he's been, oh, sorry, wait, this is, whoops. I was reading the wrong thing. Super professional, I know. Just give me a second here.
I have some of his stats up. You told me to read it off.
Yeah, go ahead. You read off the stats.
Yeah, so he's averaging 12.2 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 1.3 blocks, 150% shooting, and he's shooting 41% from three.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was right on the 40% from three. So he, like I said, like he actually, his potential is really shown out right now, and he's being mentored by Draymond Green. He's really, I think he's going to be a very good defensive player. His defense has been okay so far, but he's a rookie. I'm not going to hold defense too hard against rookies. They're still figuring out the NBA game. His fouls per game are kind of high. He's averaging 3 fouls a game, but to be fair, like I said, he's a rookie, still figuring everything out. I think he's going to be a very good player in this league. I think he's had a very good season so far. He has dealt with injuries. I believe he's out for another couple of weeks. I believe they're reevaluating him in a couple of weeks from when we're recording this. I just think James Wiseman's been very, very solid. I think this was the right pick for the Warriors here, to be honest. What about you?
Oh, what was the grade you gave him again?
I gave him a B plus.
Okay, mine was lower. So obviously, like you were saying, he is explosive. The Warriors do see him as the big man, their big man of the future, which is still the case. But when he did get benched, he was benched mainly due to his defense. I feel like as a big man, that's always a lot more important. We see a lot of guards kind of get away with playing lackluster defense because, quite frankly, as much as I like Anthony Edwards, his defense is not the craziest or most impressive. But just to watch him play, he is entertaining to watch, and he is playing some of his best basketball at the moment. Wiseman, I'm not going to be too hard with him with defense, but like I said, with big guys, they do expect you to be better defensively. Due to his injury, I haven't seen him much as of late. So based off what I have seen, which was quite impressive, but not the best. Of his class, he probably is the best big man at the moment. So I would have to give him probably a B minus so far in the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. I was a little more generous with all my ratings. You seem to be a little tougher on all the ratings. So the balance we're probably somewhere in the middle. So
I'll start with LaMelo.
Go ahead.
So LaMelo currently right now is averaging 14.6 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 6.1 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game, on 43% shooting, and 35% shooting from three. Now, LaMelo is pretty much taking over Boots Report. It's pretty much LaMelo Report at the moment. But he has fairly lived up to the hype. He has been exciting to play. I really like the combination of him and Bridges, Airbnb. I love that nickname so much. It's absolutely, it's just the one. A lot of flashy passes, his impressive layup package. His jump shot, it doesn't look as bad as I remember it looking. Cutter back in the day, he shoots straight from his chest. He still looks like he kind of does, but the arc's much better. His jump shot pretty much translates decently into the NBA. I don't like the fact that his father almost got him in some hot water with the situation with starting. But I'm kind of glad he kind of took control of his own career and was pretty much his own spokesman instead of his dad. But he did eventually move up to starter. And as a starter, he averages 20.9 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, and 6.3 assists per game. For me, he's kind of the clear rookie of the year at the moment. But if he does hope to elevate his game, it would be to drop his turnovers per game because he does average 3.3. But he's a rookie, so I'm not gonna give him too much on that. So I'm gonna give him an A.
I'm going to give LaMelo an A plus just because I believe he's so far just been the best rookie. So I want to give him that A plus. He deserves it. I mean, like you said, I was actually not super high on LaMelo. I didn't think he would translate his game this immediately, and I was wrong on that. But now I'm rooting for LaMelo. Honestly, he's really changed my mind about him. Just the fact that he's averaging 43% from the field, but kind of compared to the other rookies in the class, that's actually pretty high. And it's higher than I actually expected in general because he was shooting like 30% in the NBL. But his shot and everything has translated way better into the NBA than I thought it would. And like just in general, he just makes the Hornets fun to watch. Like that's that's invaluable. That's invaluable. And so I gave him an A plus. And I agree. He's pretty clearly the rookie of the year so far. Let's do Patrick Williams. So Patrick Williams is currently averaging 9 points, 4 rebounds, and he's shooting 39% from three. I give Patrick Williams a B plus. And if you just, it's a little surprising to hear, but just watching the games, nobody really thought he would be. I want to touch on something really quick before I jump into Patrick Williams. It's very interesting to hear your perspective as well as mine, because you were not super into the scouting and drafting of all these guys. I was I was scouting this draft class very heavily, and so my preconceived notions of a player kind of lead me to grade them differently than yours because you don't have any former attachment to them. You never really scouted much of them. So Patrick Williams was kind of viewed as a very raw prospect because he came off the bench in Florida State, but he's been very, very good right off the bat, and a lot of his skills have translated immediately to the NBA. His defense has been very, very solid for a rookie, and he's shooting very good from three, almost 40%. That's one of the highest marks in this draft class, and he still has a lot of room to improve. He can work on his handle a little bit and all that. But look, I mean, he was a surprising pick at 4, but I think it was a solid pick. I mean, Patrick Williams has been playing very well. I don't want to take anything away from him at all. And even though his stats don't look the best, I do think his on-court impact is higher than what the stats are saying. So I give Patrick Williams a B plus.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna be too hard on him. He's been a fairly decent to average starter in the NBA, but as a person who, which was one fact that I do know, as a person who never started over when he was a Seminole in Florida State, the fact that he can come out and start in the NBA pretty much and play as well as he's been playing, it is quite impressive. I was looking into his offensive and defensive ratings. That was also impressive to see. He's been playing pretty well. I know in the month of February, I think his points per game, his offensive rating, defensive rating, and rebounds have all jumped up. So he's just improving how I see it. So like you said, he's a project player. I heard about that a lot going into the draft as a project player. Him being taken to fourth, it seemed like a big reach, but I feel like at the moment it's currently working out for them. And like I said, his numbers have improved in this month of February. So on that note, I'd probably have to give him probably a B minus right now.
All right, let's jump to Isaac Okoro, who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, I'll start for this one. So the stats he has is 7.5 points per game, 2.4 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists per game, 38% field goal shooting, and 25% from three. If you thought that Williams to Chicago was a reach, I felt like this one was a much bigger reach. As a Cavalier, he has not really improved or has not really impressed, I should say. He has a negative plus minus at negative 8.1, and the thing that makes me most concerned is he's averaging the stats he has in 33 minutes. His numbers have declined over the past few months. In January, he averaged, I think, 35 minutes, and now in February, he's averaging just under 29. His defensive rating also dropped in the month of February as well. I mean, the Cavs have been struggling in the past few games, and it seems like Coro is just struggling with them as well. You know, I I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say the B word. He's not a bust, but it's concerning. This low production. I know he mainly came in as a defensive player, but you do want to see him improve on the offensive side. So at the moment, unfortunately, I gotta give him a D.
Dang, I'm cutting Isaac Okoro a little bit of a break. I'm giving him a C plus, and that's because first off, his defense has been the best so far that I've seen on the Cavs team, at least perimeter defense. And offensively, he's obviously really disappointed. He's shooting 38% from the field and 25% from three. That was always kind of a big issue with Isaac Okoro was, is he ever going to develop the shot? I don't want to knock him too much for it. I do think his defense makes up for some of his offense, but for sure, if he's gonna get any better as a player, he's gonna need to improve that 3 point shot. And I believe in Isaac Okoro. I think he can do it. I think he has the drive and the talent to do it. And so I do hope he does improve. I don't think Isaac Okoro was a horrible pick here. I do think the Cavs could have done a little bit better. But Okoro is still a very solid player, and his potential is still very high, in my opinion. In my opinion, I kind of view him as this guy, if he kind of gets his shot right, could end up kind of being maybe the Jimmy Butler of this draft. That was kind of what I was uh, impressing upon Isaac Okoro, and he did play a very, very good preseason. So if he can kind of take, if he can kind of take that preseason and he can become that player in the regular season and the playoffs. When the Cavs eventually will get back to the playoffs, hopefully we'll get back to the playoffs. Uh, I think he could be very good. So I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack. Andre Drummond's been ball hogging on offense, C plus Isaac Okoro. Let's move on to Onyeka Okongwu. So he's very hard to grade. Very, very hard to grade. He hasn't played much this year. I think he's only played about 11 games or so. But he did start at one point. I believe Clint Capella was injured, and he did start at one point, and he looked pretty decent. I'm going to give him a C plus as well. It seems a little unfair to grade him when he's been out for so long, but he still has put up enough. He's played enough to kind of get a little bit of a view of him. He does play very solid defense. His offense is the problem. He's averaging 3 points, 3 rebounds, and 0.7 blocks in 10 minutes per 36. Obviously, those numbers look incredible. But like I said, his offense needs to improve, but his defense, I've been impressed by it genuinely. He looks like an NBA defender. He can definitely defend small ball fives. He's mobile enough for it, and he's long and strong enough to guard normal centers in the NBA as well, tall centers. So I think as the season kind of comes to a close, and maybe as next season comes to a close, we'll start to really see what he is made of in terms of defense.
Yeah, with him, it was kind of hard. Kongwu, he only played a couple of games due to his, I think it was Achilles injury he had, which, that's nothing you really want to mess with. So I understand why he hasn't played too much. I haven't been the most impressed with his offensive game. Like you said, he's only averaging around 3 points, but he is, averaging 3 points, only 52% shooting, which is, I guess, good. But I just need more. I feel like we're seeing like a sample size. I just need to see him a little bit more. So I didn't want to be mean with this rig. I just gave him the bare average. Just give him a C.
Yeah. Let's jump to Killian Hayes, who was drafted by the Pistons.
Ooh, let me start this one.
You want to start it?
Yeah, I know you had a lot to say about him coming into the draft, but I just want to get my piece before you
go
start
ahead.
yours. So he averaged 4.6 points per game, 1.1 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, on 28% shooting and 35% shooting from three.
25 from three.
25, excuse me. I don't know why that switched up. 25% on three in 21 minutes. When he was healthy, in my opinion, he contributed to their losses as he was very inefficient on both offense and defense. He had very questionable shot selection, to say the least, honestly. And one of the games, when he did play, one of the games they did win, he scored 0 points and had the plus minus of -2. But to his credit, he did have 6 assists in that game. Among all rookies, he still holds the second worst plus minus, just right behind Okoro. So for me, I'm not impressed. I I gave up my first F. You got an F.
I feel bad. Okay. Anyone who had talked to me prior to the draft knew that I was down on Killian Hayes. I think I even mentioned it to you. I was like, I really hope somebody drinks the Kool-Aid on him and takes him before the Wizards, because I do not want the Wizards to take this guy. I feel bad because he's been vaulted into this lottery status when, in my opinion, he was kind of a late first round pick, kind of a talent. Let me explain why. So you going over his stats, obviously, 4 points, 3 assists. He's averaging 2 turnovers as well. So his 3 assists he's kind of mitigated anyways. Like you said, shooting 27% from the field and 25% from three. And he's playing 21 minutes a game. He's not out here with like a bench, maybe like 8 minutes a game. He's playing 21 minutes a game. He started a lot of games. He just has not been impressive in the slightest. And let me kind of explain why. So for the people that were really high on Killian Hayes, they kind of pointed to a couple highlights of him, doing a step back three, or they point to his field goal or free throw percentage and be like, he's going to be able to get his shot in the NBA. I do believe eventually he will kind of get his shot right. My problem with Killian Hayes is that, when you scout a player, you have to watch their lowlights as well as their highlights. You can't just see the highlights. If you just watch the highlights of Killian Hayes, man, he looks like the next James Harden. That's what he looks like. He's a lefty. He can step back. That's what he looks like. But when you really delve deep into what his offense revolves around, it's a lot of pick and roll. It's so much pick and roll. Killian Hayes is not fast enough to blow by anybody. And he's also not strong enough to bully people into the paint. And he's also not crafty enough to really create a lot of separation with his handles. He really doesn't even have a right hand right now. So he's very, very raw. He's a very raw prospect. And people were saying that he was NBA ready. I was hearing that from a couple of people. I know Kevin O'Connor at the Ringer was absolutely to the moon on this guy. He was the one pushing he's the next James Harden kind of a thing. I just think it's very unfair to give him like I said, he can't score from, driving or crossing anybody up or any of that. He can't score that way. So the only way he really gets separation is with his step back and with a pick and roll. And, let's be real, they're not gonna run you pick and rolls 24/7 in the NBA. Unless he is like the star, and he's not. He hasn't been playing the best. He's not even the best player on his team right now. So they're not going to run a crazy amount of pick and rolls for him. That his defense hasn't been great, but that was expected. He's not expected to be a great defender, and he's a rookie, so I'm giving him a little bit of a pass on that. The only thing he's done particularly well, in my opinion, is play make. But even then, I mean, his turnovers are almost 1-to-1 with his assists. So he's still not effective in that sense. So he's injured right now, and I'm going to be very curious to see how he comes back from injury and just how he comes next year into the league, because I believe I compared him to a Frank Ntilikina, but with less defense and more offense. I believe that's what I compared Killian Hayes to. And I kind of still stick by that. He has not been impressive. He's really not been impressive to me. I do not see a star level point guard as maybe the Pistons did. He's a good dude, and I know he's going to work hard. He has a good work ethic. So I hope he can bounce back from this. I would never wish somebody to be bad just for me to be right. So I am rooting for him, and I hope he gets better. But drafting him at 7 overall, I feel like was a big mistake for the Pistons, especially when Obi Toppin was on the board, Tyrese Halliburton was on the board, Denny Avdija was on the board. You know, I do not agree with this for the Pistons. I feel bad that he has gotten such a high bar set for him. I don't think it's fair for him, but I do hope the best for him, and I give him a D minus. I give him a D minus only because I saw one game where he looked pretty decent. He kind of had a little bit of a flash of potential, and that was against the Wizards. But let's be real, everybody looks like a superstar against the Wizards. So even that comes with a catalyst. Everything good to say about Killian Hayes comes with a catalyst to say he's not doing that great. Um, yeah, so that's my opinion on Killian Hayes. Let's jump to Obi Toppin. You can kick off this one.
So Obi Toppin is currently averaging 4.9 points per game, 2.4 rebounds per game, 0.5 assists per game, 48% shooting from the field goal percentage, and he has 30% from three. With injuries and the emergence of Julius Randle, I feel like he's kind of got stuck in the doghouse on the Knicks to a certain extent. I mean, his athleticism is impressive as he's a very good dunker. For 12 minutes, he does, do what he can. But I feel like offensively, he could, do a little bit more. He does only average around like 4.2 shots per game. So I feel like he can try to shoot a little bit more to get a shot going. Because he does have a decent mid-range jumper. Not the most special jumper from three. He can always improve in that. Everyone can improve on three-point shooting. Defense, he can still use a little bit as he took a dip. His defensive rating took a dip from January to February. But he's fairly young, and like I said, he's in the doghouse. So if he can emerge from the doghouse, I could expect him to, I do expect him to improve in numbers, and I do expect him to do more if he's given more minutes. So on that note, just based off what I've seen, I'd probably give him like a C plus at the moment.
I also gave him a C plus. Like you said, I agree with everything you said. He's kind of stuck in the doghouse right now. He's not, Julius Randle's playing so well that they're kind of Tom Thibodeau's going to him more. Obi Toppin was supposed to be one of the most NBA ready prospects right out the gate, and he's kind of not really playing like it. I know he has been dealing with injuries. He's been injured. He was injured before the season, I believe, and then he got injured again. But I still expect good things from Obi Toppin. I think he's going to end up being good. He just needs some more time and more minutes to actually prepare and actually get some time to develop. So I think Obi Toppin will be good, but for right now, I got to give him a C plus.
I agree.
Right, 9th overall, Denny Avdija to the Washington Wizards. I can kick off this one. So Denny is averaging about 6.8 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 1.6 assists. He's shooting 42% from the field and 35% from three. But he's also shooting 57% from the free throw line, which is a bit concerning. But look, he averages about 22 minutes a game for the Wizards. He genuinely is one of the best defenders on the Wizards, one of the only defenders really on the Wizards. And he's, I feel like Scott Brooks just really hasn't been using him right. I've said this in the past. I had a big Scott Brooks rant back, I believe in like the second podcast. I had a big rant about how he wasn't using a lot of his players right, especially Denny. And I still hold to that. They're kind of forcing Denny to just be a 3-and-D spot up shooter kind of a guy when that's not the best parts of his game. The best parts of his game is, letting him handle the ball a little bit and make some plays. And when he has gotten to handle the ball, he's looked very impressive. He drove to the rim. He gets dunks. When he gets to handle the ball, he gets some really good assists. He whips around, he whips the ball around. He never really keeps it stuck on him. He's not a ball hog. He's a very solid player. He's a very high IQ player, in my opinion. He doesn't make many mistakes. For all that, I'm going to give him a B. I think that, he still has one of the highest ceilings in this draft. and he could be very, very good. But, so far what's impressed me the most is his defense and his 3-point shooting, because people did say that, he might not be able to shoot at the NBA level, and he's been proving them wrong so far. He's been shooting very good. So, yeah, I give Danny Avdija a B.
Yeah, mine was not as lenient, but I did have context with it in this one more so. I feel like his poor start is kind of the product of poor coaching. Like you were saying, pretty much Scott Brooks does not play to his strengths, and he consistently misuses him. I feel like the poor handling of Abdia has caused him to lose confidence in his shot and ability at times. There's been too many games or too many moments in the game where I've seen Abdia take an open shot and miss and then just drop his head down immediately. He seems like he just loses a lot of confidence, or he just seems very concerned with something. He is a good passer, but they have not really given him the chance to show off that ability too many times. He got benched as of recent for the Wizards. But I can't really say that's his fault. I do see glimpses of promise, like you were saying. When he dropped the 20 points against the Heat earlier this season, I saw that this guy can potentially do something if given the right situation. For me, I really don't. I hope him the best, of course, but I don't see him really improving at the moment until they get a new coach and knows how to let him that learns to play to his strengths. I feel like until that can happen, we'll probably see Abdia not in the doghouse, but he'll definitely have to work really hard in these next few weeks. So for me, I just feel like at the moment he's a C, but it's not because of him. It's more so because of the coaching.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised his confidence is a little bit wavering. In Scott Brooks' system, it's just so difficult to know what earns you minutes. A lot of times, a lot of players have played really good, and then they've been benched for a few more nights and then brought back in for randomly. It almost feels like he's kind of randomly selecting these lineups. But, I do believe that's kind of affecting his confidence. But I did see him after one of the games, I believe it was a couple games ago, where he didn't shoot particularly well. He stayed in at the gym for another hour, just shooting threes for an hour. And, I think that kind of work ethic and that kind of determination in general will help him, even with, the inconsistent minutes, inconsistent opportunities for him. And I think he'll end up being a really good player, in my opinion. But we'll have to see on that. I'm also a little bit biased because I'm a Wizards fan, but I just going by the numbers and going by his impact, I think he's pretty solid, and I hope to see more from him later on. 10. Okay. The Phoenix Suns selected Jalen Smith with a 10th overall pick. I didn't give him a grade at all. I just felt like I couldn't. He's only played 8 games and only played 6 minutes in each of those games. There's not really a role for him on the Suns right now. He doesn't really have a place. They even sent him to the G League recently as well. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what he does there to kind of gauge his potential for the NBA. I do think he has some solid potential. I do. It's not a big enough sample size for me to even grade, so I just give him a NA. I cannot grade this guy. But yeah.
Yeah, same for me. From him getting COVID to just being on the bench, so it's far down on the bench as possible, and playing only around 6 minutes per game. It was really hard for me to really think of anything. Initially, I was going to grade him low, but I felt like it's kind of unfair in this situation. And especially with him going to the G League, I just kind of hope he regains his ability, and most importantly, his confidence. So I gotta say, I'd probably agree with you in not giving him a grade at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump to Devin Vassell. You can start off this one.
So Devin Vassell is averaging 5.5 points per game, 3.2 rebounds per game, 1.1 assists per game. He's shooting 40%, and he's shooting 40% from three. So when he came to the Spurs, I kind of never expected him to take on a big role, like a starting role or anything like that. And he hasn't, which is not a bad thing either. As a role player, he provides solid defense for the Spurs, and he averages actually 1.1 steals per game. In one game he did start, he did seem a bit off his game. He shot 28% from the field and 33 from three. And he also, I think, in the game he had a negative 14 plus minus. So I don't think he's ready to make that jump to be a starter just yet, but as a role player, I see him being kind of like another something we probably see from the Spurs a lot. They do very well getting role players and having role players on their team. So due to that fact alone, I think I'd have to give him around a C plus or so, because I mean, as a lottery pick, you don't want to come in straight as a role player. I mean, yes, I did not see him as a starter, but like, and when you think of lottery picks, you don't think of, oh, I'm gonna get drafted to become a role player. So just on that fact, I did give him a C, but he's been playing quite well.
Yeah, I gave him a B minus, but it was really hard. It was really hard to be either a C plus or a B minus. It was hard to decide, but I I give him a B minus just because his defense has been very solid. He's a very good help defender, and the Spurs, they are pretty good with him on the floor, but they're not, he's not making the biggest impact. I'll probably drop my grade to a C plus. What's funny is that his field goal percentage and his 3-point percentage are actually exactly the same. So if you didn't really know any better, you would have thought he only shoots threes. And for the most part, he kind of does. He sticks to 3-point shots more than he does 2-point shots. He attempts 2.4 threes and 2.3 twos. So he actually is shooting the three a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, Devin Vassell, he's been solid defensively. That's why I kind of that's the thing that's kind of bumping him up to a C plus for me. His offense has been a little inconsistent in terms of driving or cutting and all that. I think he could do a little bit more of that. His 3-point shooting's been pretty good. I mean, just about 40%. I have no issues there. But like he's also shooting 40% on 2-pointers, which is not great. But a lot of the other rookies in this class are also kind of doing the similar things, so I can't hate on him too much. Solid pick, but they kind of missed out on somebody a little bit better who we're going to bring up like right now, which is Tyrese Halliburton for the Kings. What do you think of him? He's drafted 12th overall. What do you think of him?
So what I know about him right now, his stats right now are 12.4 points per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game, 1.2 steals per game. He's shooting nearly 50% from the field, and he's shooting 44% from three. For me, this was like one of the most unexpected developments early in the season. Halliburton kind of put the NBA on notice as one of the brighter stars in this class. He's coming off the bench. He is one of the bright spots of the Kings of the moment. He won Rookie of the Month, I think, in January for the West. Just like LaMelo, I kind of felt like Halliburton had a unconventional jump shot, but obviously 44% from three and nearly 50% shooting from the field. I mean, it seems like he definitely has found his stride in the game. For me, as good as Edwards was playing, I feel like Halliburton, in my opinion, is second in Rookie of the Year race right now. I just feel like as a player, he is a bit more complete than Edwards. I feel like he is almost as complete as LaMelo. He does turn over the ball less than LaMelo, which is one of his brighter spots. But he's still currently come off the bench, so it's kind of hard to say compared to LaMelo, who's starting now. But Halliburton, I was happy to see him start, balling out the way he is. So I gotta give him A minus. I gotta give him an A minus. He's been playing very well.
You know what? He's lived up exactly to the expectations I had for him. I always thought that he was going to be like a very good sixth man type player, maybe in the essence of like a Lou Williams, but he can do it all kind of a player. And that's exactly what he's been. I'm giving him an A. I think he's been fantastic this season so far. He's arguably been playing better than Buddy Hield. Like there's a genuine decision that the Kings have to make with, do we just roll with Tyrese Halliburton? Should we just start him and go with it? I see him more as a six-man type player, like I said, but I wouldn't mind him starting at all. I mean, I'm sure a lot of teams wouldn't mind Lou Williams starting for them either. So, I think he's going to have a really good long career, in my opinion. And he's also playing good defense as a rookie, which is very impressive. So, it's nice to see. I really like to see. I like seeing a guy who was projected higher drop and then just kind of prove everybody wrong. Like, yeah, y'all should have taken me at 7. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, let's jump to Kira Lewis Jr. Uh, why don't you go ahead and kick it off with him?
So he's currently averaging 5.5 points per game, 0.9 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists per game, on 40% shooting from the field and 38% shooting from three. He has been having a pretty pedestrian rookie season so far. For 13 minutes per game, though, I mean, he has been doing what he can with the minutes he's been given. He does have a positive net rating, work, and he also has a positive plus minus of 1. So he's been doing solid for the Pelicans. I think in the month of February, he's actually been averaging 17 minutes per game, and within those 17 minutes, he's been averaging 6.6 points per game, 1.2 rebounds per game, 2.2 assists, 1 steal on 43% shooting. So it's better than his current season averages. So there is some upside to him. But I haven't been the most impressed so far, but it's still early in the season and he's still a rookie. So for me, I'd probably have to just give him like a C minus.
Yeah, I gave him a C, and that's kind of because I feel like he hasn't gotten as much of an opportunity as he should have. I know the Pelicans they really, really like him, and to the point where they're considering trading Lonzo Ball because they just really like how him and Nikhil Alexander Walker are performing for them. But he has so much, he has so many people to compete with just to get minutes. I mean, there's like Josh Hart, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, JJ Redick. Kira Lewis Jr. He had a lot of competition to actually get minutes, and in the minutes he's gotten, he's been pretty decent. I'd like to see him take on more of a little bit of a 6-man role. I don't think he's ready to start. I think he could be a very good 6-man for this team. And I know the Pelicans are looking to kind of trade JJ and Lonzo Ball as well. So that would definitely free up minutes for him. I believe Eric Bledsoe's deal is expiring this year or next. So that will also open up even more minutes for him. And I think eventually he will become a very good player. But for right now, just so far based off the production, I'm going to give him a C.
Yeah.
Finally, Aaron Naismith, with the 14th overall pick, went to the Boston Celtics. He is averaging 3.5 points per game. He's shooting 31% from the field and 30% from three. I love Naismith going in, but I cringed when I saw the Celtics pick him because I knew he wasn't going to get minutes like that right off the bat. And that's exactly what happened. He didn't get many minutes. He kind of needs to develop. There's a lot of stuff in his game that he needs to develop. He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter, and he's obviously adjusting to the NBA 3-point line. So his 3-point shooting is a little bit low right now, but I think he still has a lot of potential, and he's still my guy, so I'm still sticking with him. But I gave him a D plus so far for this season.
So from draft night, I think we were talking about it a while back, and you were talking to me and telling me how when he went to the Celtics wasn't a good fit. And the more I kind of looked into it later that night, I kind of realized that this was probably one of the worst picks that the one of the worst picks for the Celtics. And I felt like this was not the ideal place for Naismith either. As much as the Celtics do need a shooter and someone who can play defense as the guard position, Naismith was definitely not their guy. Kind of like you, I kind of felt like he would have been a better fit for like a team like the Wizards or another team like the Trailblazers. I thought that would have been a really good fit for Naismith. I was reading an article actually by a reporter named Trevor Marks titled NBA Draft 2020 Best / Worst Fits for this year's consensus lottery picks. And he said the worst place for Naismith to go was the Celtics. And I couldn't agree more with him. Marks noted that, he couldn't really add much to the shallow bench unit that the Celtics really have. And, he's really predominantly a catch and shoot kind of guy, more so than a pick and roll kind of guy, where he roll off and then shoot the three. So that's why I see like a guy like Peyton Pritchard getting more minutes than Naismith because he's more fitting to what the Celtics are looking for more so than Naismith. And I felt like Naismith kind of got dealt the wrong hand. I felt like he should have been drafted by a team that would know how to use him properly. This is like kind of goes into Danny Ainge making weird picks instead of trading away assets. I felt like he could have definitely traded away the 14th pick to another team or something like that for a player or some sort. This kind of selections with the 14th pick in the draft, it's mind numbing at times. So unfortunately, not because it's Naismith's fault, but just the situation he's in and the performance he's done within that situation. I unfortunately had to give him a D minus.
Yeah, so those are all the rookies we got. I believe I said this to you like before the draft. Like if I was a rookie, I think the number one place I wouldn't want to end up is Boston. And this is no slight to the Celtics. It's just that they have so many other rookies or as well as like just young guys competing for their bench in general that like you're not going to get many minutes, you're not going to develop much there. They're also an organization that could drop you at a moment's notice. You might even waste a couple years there just doing nothing on the bench. Uh, it's definitely Celtics are definitely one of the worst places to end up if you're not a I'm ready for the NBA right now kind of a player like Peyton Pritchard is. Um, yeah, if you're a developmental kind of project kind of a player, you know, it's Celtics aren't a great place to end up.
Yeah.
And it sucks that they had so many picks that they didn't even try to trade. Well, they did trade, I believe, the 30th pick or so. But everything else, they probably should have traded this lottery pick. I'm not sure exactly who would have wanted to move up, but if they probably would have been better off trading this for maybe a future pick that they could package together with something else and make a deal.
Yeah, it's bad because I think they had a rookie. I think Romeo Langford. I think last year in his rookie season, he said he forgot he was even a rookie. So that's how little minutes and how little playing time some of these guys get. And I just feel like that is kind of worrisome if these players look to develop their game. Boston is definitely not a developmental kind of team. And Mike, some of them might follow on Brad Stevens' shoulders a little bit, but as good as the coach he is, I feel like there is talent with the Celtics, so he could do a bit more with the young talent, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I do believe they have a good amount of young talent for sure, and I wouldn't really blame Brad Stevens for it. Brad Stevens is trying to win now, so he doesn't really have a need for rookies that can't immediately produce. So I don't really blame him for it. Danny Ainge just needs to, he needs more veterans on that Celtics team. Let's be real. Uh,
Yeah.
but right before we finish off, before we wrap up the show, I do want to talk about the G League. Uh, have you caught any G League Ignite games?
I've watched some G League games in general. I've caught only a handful of Ignite games. I think I watched the first one where Jarrett Jack went off, and I was quite impressed to see. But I've watched a couple others, but not too many.
Mhm. The G League's been exciting this year, man. They had to combine some teams because they wanted as little amount of travel as possible for like COVID and stuff. So they've combined a few teams, and the G League Ignite are very they have some prospects on there for the next draft, which look very good. Jonathan Kuminga has been very impressive with his defense. His offense is still a little bit shaky, but he is scoring like 18 points a game, I believe, in the G League. Even though he's only shooting 40% from the field, and he's actually shooting 18% from three, which is horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
But his defense is very good, and his free throw percentage looks good. So, free throws are usually an indicator of who can maybe develop a 3-point shot in the future. So, he's going to be a little bit more of a project, but he has a couple NBA ready tools right now, including his rebounding. He's averaging 7.6 rebounds a game. That's very, very good for his position. Uh, he's impressed me a lot, and also Jalen Green has been very impressive to me. I wasn't actually super high on Jalen Green. I wasn't like as high as everybody else was. But then I watched some Ignite games, and he genuinely impressed me. I mean, he's shooting 50% from the field right now, scoring 17 points a game. His turnovers are a bit of an issue. He's averaging like 3 turnovers a game or so, but that can be fixed. His 3-point percentage is 30%, which is better than Kuminga, but still definitely needs to be improved. But what I love most about the G League and seeing like young players go there instead of college is that, for one, they're playing with actual ex NBA players or people that are trying to make it to the NBA. So they're playing with bigger dudes who are stronger and all that. They're shooting from the actual NBA 3-point line. They're shooting from that line. So they're getting used to a 3-point range immediately, like an NBA 3-point range immediately. And also, they're learning to travel and kind of, it's the most, I think it's the best option if you really want to prepare for the NBA, and you can't make it to like a really good a developmental school, like maybe like Kentucky, who develops their players really well. If you can't really make it to one of those, I think going to the G League is a very good option. I mean, I really enjoy watching these guys in the G League. It's honestly a little bit easier to scout them from the G League than it is from college. So the G League's fun. If you haven't seen a game this year, catch a game. They're on usually at weird times because they don't want to compete with the NBA. But
Yeah, it's usually like an afternoon and stuff like that. Yeah.
if you're ever bored in the afternoon, you don't got anything to do, switch a G League game on. They're really fun to watch.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to watch the Santa Cruz Warriors play a couple of times this season, and I was quite impressed to see Jerry Lin still had his shot going, and Nico Manning was probably playing pretty well. And it's nice to see a lot of these rookies that don't get a chance playing in the NBA because certain rosters are on and stuff like that. It's nice to get a chance to watch them play in the G League, such like Nico Manning or someone else. So I've been quite impressed with what I've seen in the G League. But yeah, when I was watching Green's, he's a really good shooter and he's been shooting very well. But as a guard, I kind of do hope for him to kind of improve his passing because he's only averaging like 2.4 assists per game, and with the 3 turnovers, he's actually averaging more turnovers than assists. So if he does want to be, I mean, he's already projected like what, a projected top 10 pick going into the draft. So if he can improve his passing, he could probably see himself actually jump up in projections. And Kuminga, I like what he's doing, but I feel like at times he does shoot too much. He's averaging 16 field goals per game and 5.4 threes per game. So I kind of hope he does improve on that a little bit. But, I've been fairly impressed because these dudes, because like you were saying, it's like they're not even getting that they're not even playing with college players. They're playing with people who made it in the NBA or try to make it in the NBA. So it's much more competitive than going to a college or going to college to play basketball. So I've been quite impressed with them. I think they lost. I think their first game a couple days ago, if not yesterday, if I recall correctly.
It was a couple days.
It was a bit rough. I think Jalen Green he played very rough, and Kuminga played quite rough as well. But they're young players. There's so much potential on that team. It's nice to have like a veteran presence such as Jarrett Jack. I think Amir Johnson's also on the Ignite team. So there's like people who can guide them. But those two do need a bit more discipline if they do plan to go high in the draft. Just like work on certain things, like I was saying, like passing and working on ball handling and shot selection and stuff like that. But with young players like these guys, it's just impressive to see them play. Just impressive to see them play this well amongst NBA talent. So, I think Ignite was a great experiment. I hope they do this another season. I hope this is kind of a more, a regular thing. Mm. And, honestly, I kind of hope that the G League can get back into its full form not after, but within this whole COVID situation, this whole pandemic situation. I kind of hope that they can have more teams instead of combining teams. Because the G League, it feels this is kind of the most love I've seen the G League get in a long time. So, I kind of hope that they use this more to develop players. So I'm all for the G League, and I'm really enjoying what I've seen so far from it, to be honest.
And what's awesome is that these young guys are getting paid. A lot of these guys come from low income situations where, they can't, afford to just sit in college for a couple of years and not get any money coming in. They need to make money for their families now. Some of these kids are even like, started young families and they need money for their families. So jumping to the G League is a fantastic choice. I hope more prospects do it, to be honest. And Also, you can get those certain NBA guys who would kind of mentor you. Like Jarrett Jack is probably a fantastic mentor to Jalen Green and to Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, I think it's invaluable, like what you can learn from an ex NBA player, and even just from people that are trying to make it to the NBA. It's very invaluable what you can learn from them and how to make it in the league. So, genuinely, I do really hope that the G League continues to go down this path where they continue to search for young prospects who need some money, and they don't really care about going to college. They want to make it to the NBA. So just snatch them up on a deal or something. I think it would be fantastic for the G League and for the NBA and for scouting in general. Uh, but yeah, so on that note, thank you for tuning in to the Speak Truth Sports podcast. Once again, if you're interested in this type of sports content or discussion or any of that, please subscribe to us. Consider liking and sharing us to your friends. It helps us grow. And yeah, with that, I've been Bert,
Trey, as usual.
and we will catch you guys next week on the Speak Truth Sports podcast.